Welcome back to the Intercooler podcast, everybody. The podcast powered by car finance specialist JBR Capital. This is episode 281 with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. And we're joined by a guest today, Daniel Davey. Daniel, thanks for coming in. Daniel is one of the founders of a British EV sports car startup called Longbow. Andrew, we spoke about Longbow a few weeks ago on the podcast.
We did. And we said, wouldn't it be great if one of the founders would come on and talk to us about it? And lo and behold,
here we are.
Here you are.
That is the power of the Intercooler podcast. So we want to do this, Daniel, because as far as we can tell, you guys have come almost from nowhere with two fantastic looking little cars that make some quite bold claims about performance and weight and price. And we wanted to understand who you guys were, where you've come from, what your backgrounds are, more about the company itself, more about the cars, more about the technology, as much as you can tell us. And so maybe there'll be people listening to this and watching this who haven't heard of Longbow. So what's the sort of 60-second pitch?
Could I just quickly jump in and say also, just from a sort of credibility point of view, because we have heard in the past of brave little startups which have ended up not coming to anything. You have also managed, and I think this is really significant, to attract some very big hitters from the industry to come and support you. And these are not the sort of people who tend to do things on a wing and a prayer. They are clearly serious people, and they wouldn't do it if they didn't believe in the project. So I think that's just from a sort of point of view of credibility, it's good to something like get it. And we'll find out, you'll tell us who they are and why they're there and what they're going to be doing. But yeah, tell us about Longbow. Where did it come from? What was the idea behind it? What do you plan to achieve?
Yeah, I mean, you always have to start with your true north or your destination. So for us, it's changing how the earth feels about sports cars. Mm-hmm. So that's our mission as a company. And that comes from our experience very early on in the industry, where we think the almost genesis of the EV movement was the Tesla Roadster.
Yes.
So I joined Tesla 2010 with the Tesla Roadster, employee 650 globally, working on the UK and the German market, when no one had heard of Elon. No one could spell Telsa, as it was often.
Is that what you had?
Yeah.
Really? So were you based up at Lotus?
No, so the European headquarters for Tesla at the time was in Maidenhead. Uh-huh. So I was based in Maidenhead, spent some time in Munich, which was the DACH headquarters at the time as well. And actually, my first 4 months at Tesla were in Deer Creek, so Palo Alto, the headquarters of Tesla at the time, the bull ring as it was referred to. So actually that time and that moment at Tesla there was incredible. The people you spent every day with, the vision of the company, everyone thinks you can't do it. Look, Mary Barra has slagged off Tesla in the press again, using that as fuel to kind of power you. Whilst at the time at Tesla thinking, this is actually very, very challenging, and you almost believe that the press at the time. But that product, the Roadster, which in many ways was a compromised product, because it was an Elise, a little bit wider, a little bit longer, with a very, very... Everyone likens it to a Sprinter with a very heavy backpack. You had the earliest battery technology all over the rear wheel. But it was a phenomenal product to have, and it was such a great experience. And the first application of what is now the way everyone builds electric vehicles, which is using cylindrical cells mostly, and having a power electronics module, and then a three-phase AC induction motor around it. And then Tesla stopped building those in around 2012. I think the last one was delivered. 2,500 were delivered. And then no one has done anything since.
That's
exactly.
Right. That's true.
And some would say, is that not in itself something to be cautious about? It did it once. It's not perceived out there to have succeeded. And people sort of ran away and haven't come back. But you guys have.
Yeah, I mean... rejecting that premise a little bit, it was a successful program.
Yeah.
If you say a car company is delivering 800 cars a year for a total run of 2,500 cars at a £150,000 price point, that's success. It's not failure if you look at the vehicle on its own.
Yeah.
And so there is no, it can't be done. Well, it has already been done when no one knew about the brand, no one bought into technology, and there were any kind of headwind you could imagine, no charging infrastructure, So, it has been done. It can be done. It is a successful strategy to take. Even if you say as a new brand, it was successfully done by a new brand at the time as well. So the first point is it can absolutely be done. It has already been done at a time when there are a lot more headwinds at a higher price. And we strongly believe that since then, things have only gotten better for this product segment. So weight is much, much lower than it used to be, or energy density is greater. The available suppliers, we spoke to Mark Tarpening, who was the actual co-founder of Tesla. And he said at the time when they were looking to build the car, obviously they contract manufactured through Lotus for the platform, bodywork, etc. But when Tesla was looking to build the powertrain and the battery, they couldn't find engineers that could do 12 volts, let alone 400 volts.
Wow.
So you had to, and I remember being in Deer Creek with the, which was this old HP building, and you had 3 floors. Top floor was business stuff. Middle floor was assembly of battery modules and motors. Bottom floor was in the caves, was where they were engineering Model S. Mm-hmm. And in the middle floor, in this big open, there's literally a guy taking 18650 cells out of a cardboard box, putting them into a mold, slathering it with glue, and then that's how Tesla built the battery packs.
Goodness.
Whereas today, your giga, and at each point, I think over the last, when you follow it as long as I have, at each point when people say, well, this is the battery capacity required to build this number of vehicles, everyone says, well, that exceeds today's battery capacity by 10x.
Yeah.
And we've crossed that threshold at least 3 or 4 times since I've heard that narrative.
Yeah. And this has all happened in 15 years.
It's all happened in 15 years. All the things you need, all the ingredients to build an electric car, an electric sports car, over the last 15 years have probably seen the greatest investment and shift and transformation in automotive history.
Yeah. But okay, I guess the fundamental question is, but why? When people who listen to this will be so used to and loving of conventional internal combustion, particularly with small light sports cars with gearboxes which make wonderful sounds. Why are you choosing to be different and not just go down the path of least resistance, which people, where you know that there is a market and where people will not have any, you won't have any trouble persuading them as to the sort of fundamental philosophy behind your car, and yet you're deciding to do something completely different?
I think, again, on that, I would challenge that a little bit, because until we launched what we're doing, we didn't know whether we were lunatics and no one actually wanted this. But since we've come out to the world and shown the vehicles and what we're intending to do, we've seen nothing but universal excitement about the project. Where in other areas you might see it should have an IC, it should have a, I haven't really seen that, even in the deepest, darkest depths of the Lotus forums. Where
so no one is saying to you, that's a great looking car, it looks amazing, the spec looks amazing, but wouldn't be just great if you had an internal. That's not a conversation that you're having.
There's a lot of those already, aren't there? It's because then we'd just be like, oh, you're just doing that, but with a slightly different exterior. So I think there's a growing excitement about it. And part of the reason we were able to have the conversations with Mike and Michael and Dan and bring people on board is that I think they deeply know this is possible and they really want someone to do it.
Sure.
And no one has the gumption to actually break from the mold perhaps and not look at where we are today or where we've been for the last 10 years, but what is actually clean sheet, what's possible today. If you ignore that and you look at the ingredients, you look at how far the market's come, what's possible today. And the final piece is, I would say often is, 95% of this car is a regular lightweight sports car. Yeah. Fundamentally, the only thing that's changed is the powertrain in it. Sure. So, but no one's done that. So no one has kept 95% of the car the same and looked at, okay, what happens if we put a modern, cutting edge electric powertrain into the right ingredients for a lightweight sports car? What's the output? No one's done that since Tesla, really.
No,
yeah,
they haven't. And the reason I think that the response has been so positive so far is that you have approached it in the way that a true car enthusiast would. The cars are light. They appear to be compact. They don't have massive amounts of power, which is the route that all others have gone so far. And with that comes a massive amount of weight and expense. you've done it in the right way, the way that enthusiasts would do it. And I think that's why people like us have gone, ooh, that's quite interesting. But listen, we'll come on to the cars. We'll come on to those heavy hitters that Andrew alluded to earlier. Can we talk a little bit about the company itself, Longbow? I love the name. Where did that name come from? Who gets the credit for the idea?
Naming anything is very challenging.
It's so tough.
We know.
Let's just flesh that out a little bit. You need to be able to get the web domains. You need the social media handles. You need to be able to protect it by law, trademark it. It's so difficult.
Yeah. So it's very hard. And actually, when we were going through, so we had a placeholder name or a stealth name that we had as a business, which was Ether. So the fifth element was the idea around it, the thing that binds everything together. But really, I think Longbow mainly came from when we realized that as a product and as a company, we want to be quintessentially British. And then it's looking at, so really, if you want to know the real reason, a longbow is an intersection of craftsmanship and development with the expertise of a longbowman. So without either, both are useless.
Yes.
So it's the symbiotic relationship of a longbow with a longbowman. And so our drivers in this regard are the longbowmen, or guild members as we call them. So you need a beautiful product, but without a driver, it's nothing. And without the driver, that's really where Longbow comes from. And for us, yes, at that time, that was the height of technological advancement, how you're bending you into that shape based on all this experience.
And they're probably composite bows, weren't they, using different woods?
They weren't actually.
Okay.
So most, I'm such a nerd.
Keep going.
So most bows that would have a 200+ pound draw, so if you look at like Mongolian composite horn bow, were composites. The longbow, which is why it's so long, was not a composite bow uniquely. Composite bows are technically better, but I won't say that because the name of course is Longbow. But the British were able to mass produce the longbow because it didn't require the same level of expertise that was needed for a composite bow. You just needed a yew tree and a bowyer to create a longbow.
And if you had a bunch of people with longbows up against a bunch of people with crossbows, the guys with crossbows lost.
Always, because it's how often you can draw.
Exactly.
So your crossbow, what the crossbow allowed you to do is you didn't then require the expertise. So a crossbow is
anyone can do it.
A crossbow is all your traction control settings, your ABS. That's a crossbow.
Liking the analogy,
right? And a longbow because you have to start at the age of 4 to develop the ability to do a 200-pound draw.
Yeah.
And it's not doing it once; it's doing it repeatedly for hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's not a skill. There's a skill in it, but it's the developing over time, the musculature and the physiology.
But once you can do it, in terms of what would the measure be, arrows per second or arrows per minute, would have been.
It's probably that. It's hours per minute multiplied by distance multiplied by accuracy. Those are probably the three.
They're the metrics.
Yeah, apparently.
Blimey.
There we go. We're to arrow.
No, that's why you're here. It's great. So tell us about your co-founders. Who else is? Who do you work with?
Yeah, Mark Tapscott, Yenny Kaizu. Those are my two co-founders. So Mark is very much the engine room of the company. Background actually from a design perspective, but then was early on in Nitron racing. So was involved in the Thrust SSC record that Nitron were used for. And built gentleman Elises or plastic pigs as a business and was very much focused on that before someone at Tesla took him for a test drive and realized that this is the future. So when I left Tesla the first time round, that's when Mark joined Tesla to then effectively build the UK business Roadster S, X, 3, Model Y.
Yeah.
And then Yenny Kaizu is joining us as chair. Before this, she took X-Shore, which was a Swedish electric boating business, from nothing to start of production across 2 models, all the fundraising rounds, all the building of that. And before that, she was a lawyer in private equity and other VC businesses. So she's very much come from, yes, hard tech or deep tech as it's called now, but before that has spent a lot of time in the investment world. And that's somewhere where Mark and I haven't had experience. We've been head down looking at how you build brands and build electric car companies for the last 15 years. And then Yenny approaches it more from a how do you build the governance in the right company to bring the right investment in and look at the future, so you're not looking at the drawing board every day.
So how long ago was the first conversation, presumably between you and Mark, where you sort of said, yeah, let's give it a go?
2019.
Wow.
Actually, we started off in a very different direction. So we started off on the premise that you should be taking existing cars and electrifying them, as existing brands and electrifying them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on a journey with some British manufacturers, some US manufacturers that build lightweight internal combustion engine vehicles, looking at how you amend that vehicle and that product and that brand to align it with an electric powertrain. And went a long way down the road of how you engineer that. So speaking to every major engineering and contract manufacturing business to understand how they view that should be done. That's almost the groundwork before Longbow. And we then realized you actually, as a compromise, if you use an existing brand, you're compromising the future product, and you're compromising the historical product.
Yeah.
And you're compromising
because they were never meant to be together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is not this. These things are not the same.
Yeah.
And that's when we got to the point, well, actually, the best way to do this is clean sheet as a brand and as a product, because then it's easier from a product perspective, arguably harder from a brand perspective, because you don't have any provenance to lean into. But that's the genesis. That's when the conversation started. I think first conversation with Jenny would have been 2023, just shortly after she left Exshore.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the cars that you've so far announced. 2 models, the Roadster and Speedster. They look fantastic. Who designed them? They look brilliant.
So we work together with. So we don't always want every member or every part of the Longbow route to market isn't it all being in our company. We don't believe in large empires that procrastinate. So part of this has been looking at what do you do internally, what do you do externally.
Yeah.
And for that we used work with Chris and Jonathan Gould from Avant Design. So we were very clear on what the product is from the beginning. From the beginning it was always a Speedster. The performance characteristics were important, and actually we started with the business plan, engineering, manufacturing feasibility study before we even arrived at designing the product, and then working with them on exactly the design of the vehicle.
And so this information, these numbers are freely available on your website. The Speedster, which is a screenless open top thing, you say it'll do 0-62 in 3.5 seconds, weigh 895 kilograms with a 275 mile range, costing £84,995. And the Roadster, which is actually a coupe with a roof, 0-62 in 3.6 seconds, a little bit heavier at 995 kilograms, 280 mile range, costing £64,995. And it's those numbers that really caught my attention. Apart from the way the cars look, it's those numbers. These are super light cars. You guys call them featherweight electric vehicles, like it's a new category. And the big question is how, when no one else has done this, when every other comparable car, and we know that Porsche is coming out with electric versions, the new versions of the Cayman and Boxster, and we know that there's going to be a new electric Alpine A110.
Yes.
They're not going to be as light as this. Nothing light. Nothing like.
If any of them are within half a ton, I would be amazed.
And the sort of common wisdom here is that EVs are heavy because the batteries are very heavy. But you appear to have given these cars very decent range, 275 and 280 miles, but still they're very, very light, and they're not crazy expensive. So I would like to know, and people listening to this I'm sure would like to know, how is that possible? Normally you can only have 2 of those things, right? You can have a light car with a good range, but it'll be expensive. Any sort of variation of those 3. But having 3 together so far has not been possible.
I think first of all, no one's tried.
I think that's probably right.
So no one's tried. It's not. It's not that it's not possible. It's no one has tried. It is. I can assure you, it's possible.
Demonstrably so.
It's not. It's not just possible. It is the plan. So and that's not us sitting there and we think we can do that. That's after a long exercise of the feasibility, engineering, manufacturing, and the work we're doing currently to actually build that product as we're talking about it. So. But I'd also say if something we figured out recently. If you just took our powertrain as it is and put that in the original Tesla Roadster, it would weigh under a ton. And that car was not designed.
The Tesla would weigh under a ton.
Yeah, if you just put our powertrain in. Just the advancements we talked about
What
earlier.
did it weigh? About 1,300 or
1250, 1300. Yeah. So just doing that would reduce the weight of that car, and that's just benefit. We started talking about the benefits over the last 15 years, how the industry's come along.
Yeah,
and that's before you look at all the other advancements in other areas. So material sciences around exteriors, bonded extruded aluminium, chassis technology, the understanding of that. After the S1, S2 programs and everything that's come since then, wheels are everything is lighter in general across the industry.
So, is what you're saying is that there is no sort of, the car doesn't contain any technological breakthrough. It's all quite conventional stuff, but put together in a way that's never been done before, and obviously put together in a way that's being very carefully thought out to always make sure that weight is kept to a minimum, which has allowed you to do this. Is there anything in it which hasn't, in terms of the technology, is breaking new ground, or is it all still?
There will be a few things that I can't talk about now that will be. There's one thing we can talk about, which is the application of module to chassis technology. So, very simply, normally a battery pack, you build a battery pack, you glue it all together and you stick it in a car.
Yeah.
So you have a chassis and a battery that strengthens the chassis. Actually, the chassis should be the battery pack. So for us, we will have a lid on a part of the battery pack that is acting as the chassis, and your modules are fastened and secured to that, not glued in. So when
is this like when racing cars in the late 60s, the engines started to become fully stressed members of the?
Yes.
And didn't have to be carried in a separate subframe anymore. They
Correct.
Got bolted to the back of the chassis.
That is the closest application of it. I think that it became a stress member. I think the slight deviation there is the chassis is already a stress member and the battery isn't adding to it being a stress member. Yeah. So in other EVs, because it's glued into almost a block, then the stresses run through it. You don't want the stress running through your battery modules. The stresses run around the outside and the batteries are free to sit there. But by not making them stressed, you reduce all the complexity and costs and glues and adhesives and all those things that go into it. And also it makes it much easier to replace in the future. If you want to, you get to 300,000 odd miles and 80% of range isn't enough for you, and you want new modules in. You're not throwing away the whole everything. You're replacing the module side of it. So it gives you flexibility in the future. And, we talk about not circularity but immortality. So a car that lasts 100 years, and designing a car from the beginning that is not designed for circularity, is designed to stay on the road. Because the best cars, the most expensive cars in the world, stay on the road.
Sure.
So part of that is when we're thinking about the chassis and the battery is that thought goes into it as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the lightweighting, a little bit more about that. So are you using very, very expensive carbon fibers and all this stuff that's just chewing into your margins on these cars? Or is it actually just intelligent design, clever application of material, of sensible materials? That's how you've achieved it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we will avoid any use of carbon fiber if we can, because it's the least sustainable material you could possibly put into anything. So per kilogram, it's 10 times worse than most things, and it's 50 times worse than the aluminium we would be using. So carbon fiber,
I didn't know that.
Do not want to use carbon fiber.
Okay.
Wow.
At all. I mean, it's carbon, so it's but yeah, so carbon fiber is per kilogram probably has the highest carbon cost of any material on the planet. There would be loads of exceptions to that, but material that's generally used in automotive, it's exactly as you say. It's and most of it's actually what should not be in the car. So, failing a steering wheel and four wheels and whatever it takes to make that work, that's what should be in the car. Yeah, and then there's elements.
So they're quite pared back, quite driver focused, simple cars.
Yeah, I wouldn't say simple. I would say curated. It's you got two elements in a car, and one of the minimum you need to get you from A to B, and then it's things on top of that are helping to create that experience within the vehicle that you want to create. And I think that's where we're focused. So for us, theatre, driver engagement, tactile engagement within the drive are very important for us. Mm-hmm. So if some form of shifter or experience around shifting adds 5 or 10 or 20 kilograms of weight more than a button, we'll do it. because that's more important at that point. So it's always this, you
it's
need
more important to have the interaction, the tactile interaction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for us, you've got to be very fastidious on your weight bomb, and your price bomb, to your bill of materials for both weight and price to hit those parameters you talked about and the price we've talked about. But not so much where it's just engineers focused on engineering everything out, and not so much focused on the design where that adds a bit of weight. And then the third element then is the driver engagement. And it's always keeping a lens and finding where you make compromises on some areas in order to benefit others.
So just a couple of things so presumably, will a car have power steering, or is it an unassisted rack?
It will be an assisted rack. Yeah.
Great. Love that.
Yeah.
That'll save you a bit of weight.
We're oscillating between those two because obviously there's a weight cost.
Of course.
But as you go through the different iterations of trialing, you end up, because again, we're not building a Mark 1. It needs to be livable.
Yeah.
We're not. It's not a purely track-focused car. It is a.
Okay, so it's a usable car.
It's designed for on-road performance. It is a daily driver. That's what it's designed for.
And more so that than a track car.
It is absolutely not designed as a track car. That is not in any way the intention of the.
Okay, but nevertheless, it is a car that would feel at home on a track.
When you strip weight, and you
just do, don't you?
It's
inherently, I'm not going through loops to make a track-focused variant of the vehicle.
But if you look at it,
you'll do.
If you just look at the car, and your natural reaction to it is, you could think to yourself, "Gosh, I mean, that's the sort of car that you might that you might expect to see at a track day." It's just because it is in the same way that you look at an Elise, which is a road car. But you go to any track day, and there'll always be a couple of Elises knocking about, won't there?
Yeah, I mean, we don't be surprised if we look at track variants down the road.
Yeah.
But that's not the focus of the core vehicle when we put it on the road.
Yeah. Purely passive suspension on the car?
Yes. At the moment, there are some interesting things we're looking at. But yes, again, from a weight perspective, we just want to get that core tuned vehicle where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And again, look at core vehicle versus derivatives and performance derivatives later on.
Yeah.
So everything I'm saying is around the elemental vehicle that most customers will get versus the derivatives we build off of that. Because, semi-tuning damper, the things that people want when they play around their car can be a performance option that we add for people who want that.
Yeah.
But that's not our core audience. We want almost anyone who wants to get a sports car, isn't into tinkering, wants it straight out of the box.
Yeah.
A car that's going to drive in the way we want it to drive. Again, curated versus fully customizable.
Single motor?
Yes.
Rear drive?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lithium-ion battery?
Yeah. Has to be.
Yeah. Has to be. Yeah. So this is a car that's kind of like born for the open road.
Yeah, exactly that.
More than anything else.
Yeah. You don't want to be, you've had a tough day, you want to go out for a drive. Or you want to go to Cornwall on the weekend when it's not torrential rain.
We're both there this week. Yeah.
But so you'll still have all the sort of necessary niceties of to make a car a daily driver. So you'll still have an infotainment system in there. Will you have air conditioning in the Roadster?
Again, drawing a differentiation between the Speedster and the Roadster, where Speedster on its own, because it's roofless and screenless, will be very raw and elemental.
Yeah.
But as you look at the Roadster, absolutely, yeah. Air conditioning, infotainment system, but never infotainment system, hyperscreen distraction. It's something you can choose to opt into if you want to be distracted from the elemental theatre of the vehicle. So we won't have huge screens and a screen-based experience in the vehicle. Absolutely not.
But you'll be able to
Apple CarPlay, get from
connect
ATV.
your phone.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Connect your phone.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It's a requirement.
Yeah.
Because it's livable, right? You can't say it's a car you can take everywhere, but we don't have a phone mount and there's no Apple CarPlay, and you've got to hope your co-pilot is.
And in terms of the dreaded, what do they call them? Driver assistance systems. I presume you have to have those, don't you? Do you not have to have lane keep or because your volumes will be such that you can duck under the requirements for that? How does that all work?
We will always meet the required homologation standards and features.
Yeah.
But not with a view to exceed them. I think we see them as a distraction.
Yeah.
So we'll meet them in order to meet any relevant homologations, and that's different by vehicle as well. It speeds the roads to others.
And sorry, talking of homologation, will you homologate this vehicle so it could be sold anywhere in the world?
Yeah, I mean, target for Speedsters, again, the mission, change how the earth feels about sports cars. So that can't have all of our cars delivered in the southwest of England for that. Obviously, from speedster to roadster, you're looking at different homologation standards, but the aim is, global sports cars are sold in Europe, Japan, North America.
Yeah.
Those are the key markets to hit.
So it's striking that these cars are not horribly expensive. 85,000 for the Speedster, 65,000 for the Roadster, sensibly priced. But you're presumably very confident that at that sort of money, there's a sensible business plan around this whole project.
Yeah, it's sensibly spec'd. Right? I said before, talking about a focus on the bill of materials. If we wanted the car to do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, your weight, your costs, everything goes up.
Yeah.
So it's again aligning and agreeing on what is the ticket price, what's the entry price from a 0 to 60 perspective, range perspective that people need, versus maybe vanity. And Mark always talks about no one needs a car that can drive across the Yangtze.
Yeah.
If you want to build a car that can drive across the Yangtze, it's not going to be £65,000. It's going to be, so you're again, it's what's not in it. Very core focus on what is in it to achieve that price.
But is there also something else going on here? And I'm just thinking back to the points you made about the Tesla, and I guess the Roadster, that is. And I guess the greatest job that car did was make the world aware of the brand. And I presume you're not just going to build these two cars and stop there. Presumably these cars are designed to be striking, to get at people's attention, to get the name Longbow registered in people's head. And it may therefore be that, Alpine did this, didn't they, with the A110? They built the A110 and have now kind of used that as a springboard, having got the name sort of re-registered in people's mind to build other cars which are less extreme and probably come with bigger margins attached to them. So presumably you're playing a long game here, and this is just that these two cars are just the first act of that. And actually, part of their job from you, as from a business point of view, is to get everybody familiar with the brand before you go on and do all the other things that you've got in the pipeline. Is that a fair assumption to make?
That's where you have to start.
Yeah.
You talked before around why have maybe some of these projects failed. I think you need to be laser focused on what you're doing. So, if you look at sports cars, 200,000 two-seater sports cars are sold a year, of which 50,000 911. 40,000 Corvettes.
Really? Yeah.
So, and Ferrari have the best margin in the industry in the products they're selling, in the way they put that together. And you could say Ferrari's an outlier, but if there's an outlier you go after, there's one there. So do you build a car that's not, and again, volumes, right? 2,000, 3,000, but we're looking at 10,000 a year by 2030 is our aspiration.
Goodness.
But if you say...
So that's bigger than...
It's quite a lot.
It's bigger than Aston Martin is now.
Yeah. But Aston Martin doesn't cost £65,000.
No. But so okay, but you're not talking about building 10,000 Roadsters and Speedsters. There are other products going to come along which may or may not cost £65,000.
And then if you want to build a product to sell more volume, you need to be very laser focused on what you're going after and which markets you're going after. So if because people will pretty much want what they had before, but then you need to give them a reason to change. And that reason could be technology, it could be a better drive, it could be brand. There's a number of reasons you can tap into their value of the vehicle, right? So how well does it keep its residual value?
Sure.
There are a load of things you can bake into that. But yeah, you the market is absolutely there for 10,000 vehicles a year. It's it's 5% of the sports car market.
Wow.
Yeah.
You'll be well aware of all the British startup, sports car startups that have come and gone, even those resurrecting famous brand names. It's a tricky thing to do. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Why is it that you guys are going to buck that trend?
I think being realistic, I think is one. So having a business plan that's realistic and achievable, and that's based on our experience, having done this and knowing what isn't achievable, what is achievable, and it's leaning into Mike, Michael, Dan on what is achievable, what's not achievable. That's the first thing. So I think from the very beginning, building a stretch but achievable business plan and model and specs on the vehicle. I think that's the first one. And I think we're doing this despite having done it before. So a lot of people will say, okay, well, I spent 30 years at Mercedes and ended up as global vice president of X. I'm the best person to launch a car brand. It's like, you have no idea how to launch a car brand.
Yeah.
You have no idea how to build a lightweight sports car because you've never had to do that.
Exactly.
Your career is meeting to meeting to meeting, speaking to board, meeting journalists. Mark and I have grueled over delivering in the face of all odds. So Tesla for me, then Lucid. Mark was involved in launching BYD in other parts of the world, involved in looking at organizational structure for Porsche Design on how they do direct-to-consumer. Like, this is our career, is doing this at the business end. And Yenny, same thing from Exshore, from nothing to delivering those products. We've done this before. And where we have gaps, that's how we built our advisory board. So we can just go and ask, hey, we don't know how to do this, Mike or Michael or Dan. Yeah. What would you do? Oh, yeah, well, this is what I did there and there and there. Okay, cool. Great.
Well, let's talk about the advisory board.
Just before we do, I'm just trying to think of questions which people will be desperate for us. What's it going to sound like? Are you going to just let it sound completely natural, or are you going to have some kind of sound symposer in it? I mean, and also, you kind of mentioned gear changes earlier in the conversation. Is there going to be something that you're going to be doing to synthesize that? I mean, we all know about what Hyundai did with the i5N, and much as we were probably a bit sniffy about it until we tried it, once we tried it, we absolutely loved it.
So simplicity, authenticity, and connectedness are three they are core business principles that we operate under. But theatre is important, and no one has looked at. So when everyone thinks of electric vehicles, if we say we're building an electric two-seater sports car, everyone thinks of a Tesla without a roof.
Yeah. Or
they think of a Hyundai Ioniq without a roof, or they think of a BYD without a roof, because no one's done. Or they think of maybe a hypercar like a Battista or a Navara, right? They're thinking those two ends. No one's done this before. And typically electric vehicles are D-segment SUVs, which are built to remove theatre.
Yeah,
they should be quiet. They should drive themselves and get you from A to B in the lowest possible price per mile.
Yeah.
So everyone thinks if an EV is soulless, you're like, no, a D-segment SUV is soulless. So it'd be like comparing an Elva to a X5, right? It's not. That's an Elva. That's built around theatre, and it has a ICE powertrain in it. It is not a BMW X5, which is not designed around theatre.
Yeah.
So I think that the first thing there is an EV is not inherently without theatre. D-segment SUVs are without theatre.
Yes.
And all the EVs on the road are not sports cars in that regard. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is, if you think about ICEs, a lot of the theatre in the vehicle is introduced. You turn on a V8 and it revs. It doesn't need to do that. That's not a requirement of getting from it not being on to being on is, that.
Yeah. Oh, right. That initial.
Yeah. And the dial going up and the lights coming on is not required.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
That's introduced. And even engine harmonics, noise harmonics in engines are introduced. They are tuned in a way specifically to make it sound better. Exhaust are tuned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're inherently an ICE doesn't have theatre.
Yeah.
It is also introduced, and it's authentically manufactured or extracted from what you're putting in place. Right? So those are the first 2 points. So again, no one's tried it with an EV. Yeah. Everyone's looked at it from engineering that out as a bug. It's silent. It needs to be silent. It doesn't need to be silent. You choose it to be silent. So for us, how do you authentically, with that powertrain in the vehicle, deliver the theatre that should come from that powertrain in that vehicle? And we're the first to do it. So we almost get a chance to decide what is the shifting experience in a lightweight electric sports car? Well, no one's done it. So we'll sit down and think, well, what is it? Well, it's not that or this. We like that. We don't like that.
Can you shed any light on what your thinking is at the moment?
Tactile. So tactility in your so again, most of it is how you have your interior experience. How do you experience the cockpit of the vehicle? And again, it's looking at ICEs from a cockpit experience and what is good and what shouldn't be in there. What's a distraction? So
can you name any ones that you particularly like from that point of view?
I mean, if you look at what De Tomaso have done, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, really. And also Gordon Murray, how they're thinking about the interior it's not Spartan. It's not Spartan, but it's very focused. It's very curated, and things like the spiker, the way you make your shifter jewelry or part of that experience. Forget all the noise that you maybe get in vehicles like that. So it's really looking at the different parts that should be in there. Do you want flappy paddle gearbox if you are shifting, or is that why are you doing that? That's not. We're trying to get people engaged into it because you want to go out and drive this thing and feel that you're in control, and also to a degree manufacture certain elements because it puts a smile on your face.
Sure.
But not to the point where it sounds like a UFO floating around and you've got to do loads of sequence of things to get a thing. It needs to be the user it's UX, user experience, and UI, user interface. How are you interfacing with and interacting with that vehicle? That's how we. I'm not going to tell you more details because there's some. I don't want to steal the thunder, but that's how we think about it. Very much so.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Clearly, there's only so much you're prepared to say at the moment, which is understandable. But it's encouraging to me that tactility, even within an EV, is absolutely front and center for you and for these cars.
Yeah,
has to be, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Yes. If it's not an involving driving experience, why on earth are you doing it?
Yeah.
Then you're a cyberster.
Exactly.
And then also then your weight's up there because it doesn't matter because you can put that front and center.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
Yes.
So let's talk about this advisory board. You announced it a few weeks ago, and some of the names on there are extremely familiar. Mike Flewitt, Andrew, 30 seconds on Mike Flewitt.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly most famous for having been the boss of McLaren for many years. He sort of came in around about the time the P1 was being launched. And really all the McLarens that we know and love today are at least in part Fluid cars. All the way through the 570S up to the 720 and all those amazing Ultimate Series cars that we had on our stand at the Bristol Scramble. And he was in charge. I can't remember how many years he was in charge of at McLaren for. But the way that the products that we so admire from McLaren have largely got that way through him, and also a proper. I mean, although he came to McLaren because they'd had a difficult launch without him, and they were having trouble sort of productionizing the cars, and he came from a history of sort of running Ford factories. And so he came along to sort of make the business run properly. But he is a proper car guy and understands lightweighting. I mean, he races a Lotus Elan, so he completely understands and will be a sort of key influence and a fantastically valuable source of advice when you're trying to do this kind of car.
And Michael van der Sande, who was MD at Alpine, a guy I've done a little bit of work with. Great guy. As an aside, he's tall. Will he fit in your cars?
He's very tall.
Yes.
Yeah.
he definitely sits outside of I think he's 98th percentile, 97th percentile.
Yeah.
I'm reasonably tall. My dad's 6'4". If my dad couldn't fit in our cars, I think I
You'd be in
don't
trouble.
need to bother going home again.
Yeah.
But you got to find a line on it again, right? It can't be everything. You have to be very focused on what the vehicle is, what it isn't. So is it as good a driving experience for someone who's 6'8" as it is for someone who's 6 foot? Probably not, because we wouldn't optimize around it, but it would be manageable.
He was more recently head of Jaguar Land Rover's special vehicle operations. There's a third as well, another Dan, I think.
Dan Balmer, yeah.
From Aston Martin?
Lotus. So he was president CEO of Lotus until 3 months ago. So
talk about heavy hitters and talk about guidance and advice for you and your co-founders. What kind of a difference has that advisory board made so far?
Huge. You're not. There's not an ego. This is not an ego journey. We're not. It's not Dan, Mark, Yenny cars. It's we have a clear focus on what we want to build as a company and products that we want to build, and it's bringing as many smart people around the table who know how to do that, and then listening to them. That's the focus. Your advisory board is not just there as jewelry to garnish your investor decks and to put on your website. You bring the people in that have the best experience to help you get where you want to get, and not just experience, the best people. Because all three of them are phenomenal human beings as well. First, they really are. They're great to engage with. They're super professional. They're very clear and concise, very experienced. But also, if hey, we're thinking about doing that, yeah, it makes sense. Go for it. They won't, for the sake of showing how capable they are, change it to their own flavor. It's really great to work with them. It makes a huge difference now and at each point in the journey as we go through different milestones will make a huge difference.
So sitting here in a studio in September 2025, where is the project now? Have you got a car? Are you building a car? When will it go on sale? When will we get the sort of full specification? Can you just talk us through the sort of here and now of things?
Yeah, so start at the bookends. So we'll start manufacturing end of next year. So end of next year will be start of production for our first vehicles for the Speedster. Between now and then, what are we doing? So we will be showing something very exciting towards the end of October in person. So you're both obviously very welcome to attend.
Yes, please.
That's going to be a very key milestone for us. And then from there and start of delivery, all the things you need to do to make sure the car hits on all those promises we've set. That's and most of that's just longevity, durability testing, and ensuring that you're building you said it on your last podcast. And actually we've had this advice from a lot of people. Dan at Lotus was there when the Emira was first launched. Jack Ricks at Top Gear gave us advice as well, saying, please, we want this car as soon as possible, but don't give it to us until it's ready. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that is going to be that's so important. The car needs to be ready. Yeah, because even if we deliver it and then the last bit is done in the next 6 months, cat's out of the bag. As a new brand, with a new product, we will be very much judged on
completely the
pudding.
Yeah. Having spoken to you, I mean, I looked at these numbers and I just thought, how on earth are they going to do that? The weight figures, the range figures, the acceleration times, the price. Having heard it from you, I believe it can be done. But is it daunting, the idea of building not just a couple of these things, but hundreds and then thousands? Elon Musk spoke about production hell at a different scale, but building series production cars is fantastically difficult. You'll know far better than I how difficult it is. Is that a challenge all on its own, and is it a challenge that you guys are ready to rise to?
It is a challenge, but it's been done countless times.
Yeah.
And it's been done countless times by people that we have already from an advisory board perspective. As you go through different phases of a company, you have to. So Tesla, as a company, broke and remade itself multiple times to get to where the company that you need to deliver a Roadster is not the company you need to deliver Model 2 million cars a year of Model Y.
Yeah.
So the current form and how Longbow is set and needs to be built in order to deliver the 150 Speedsters is very different to the company we need to be doing 10,000 cars a year.
But you don't need to be doing 10,000 cars a year next year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if we built that, and this is in many cases where companies do it wrong, is they build that 10,000 car company at the beginning, and the way a 10,000 car company works is it's a large empire that procrastinates. Yeah. And I've worked at Tesla, I've worked at Lucid, I've worked at places where that's not what you need. You need the company that builds 150 great Speedsters.
Yeah.
And then, probably before you start delivering them, you need to start breaking all of that and rebuilding it into a company that builds 2,000 great Roadsters. And then when you break it, and then you have to build the company that builds 10,000 cars.
So it'll be 150 Speedsters, and you'll do all of them first.
Correct.
And then do the Roadsters.
There'll probably be a little bit of overlap between them, but that will be old company on its trajectory and the manufacturing perspective as we build the new.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess the reason, don't put words into your mouth, but that Dan asked the question is, we are all very aware of, car companies that have produced a car. I mean, most recently, I guess, TVR in 2017?
A while ago, yeah.
8 years ago. So far, one car. And I think certainly having spoken to you and learned much more about it, it's really reassuring to know that, you're not going to go down that path, and that you understand exactly how to get from not from where you are now, 10,000 cars, but from 0 to 150 and then to 2,000, and that you have the resources and particularly the advice to make that happen.
Yeah.
Manufactured in the UK?
Yep.
How will they be sold?
So we've sat at different types of companies. So fully direct to consumer, which would be Tesla, Lucid direct to consumer, different flavor. Now moving to shift models. We've dealer side, dealer hybrid side, agent side. I think you need to look at the fundamentally. I'm not avoiding the question, but giving you the lens through which we view this problem. As a manufacturer, we have to own the customer journey and experience and interactions. Not, oh, great, you've designed it. A local dealer will be in contact with you in 3 minutes and going through their system and their process.
See ya.
It falls apart.
You need to know who they are.
And they need to know who you are.
And we need to be clear on how you work with them. This is our customer. This is how you interact with them. These are the bounds. Thank you very much, because we want them to be interacting in the right way. So that continuity of experience, because your first car sells your fourth car from the same car. Your lifetime value of customer is important, and often that's your after sales journey as well. So we will always own the customer. We will always be directly accountable for the customer from first interaction all the way through to after sales. And
that's what they want too.
Yeah, and there will be different people outside of Longbow that may have a part to play in that production at different points in the journey, but it's always our production. We're always directing, producing, writing that script, and they're actors in that play, but it's our play. Yeah.
Excellent. Very nice way of putting it.
Is there anything else you want to know, Andrew?
Well, when can we drive one, really? But I guess we're looking a year or more from now.
Oh, before then.
Yeah?
If you're willing to drive the one that isn't fully ready.
Completely. Absolutely. Where do you want me?
Yeah. So no, that's it. It's going to be, we will get cars on the road sooner than you think, and then we'll have more and more of them on the road sooner than you think, and then we'll start production when we're planning, but we won't start production until it's the car it needs to be.
But you're taking orders now?
Yeah, we're taking reservations now.
Reservations. Yeah. Can you tell us how many you've got?
No, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
I can tell you though that we are nearly sold out of our first year. We're nearly getting to the point where we're sold out for a year and a half, including Roadster.
Fantastic.
And we're limiting Roadster to 1,000. So we will not have, or 995, which is the weight attribute. So we will never have more than 1,000 reservations, because we don't want to have, again, our experience at Lucid and in many ways listening to Michael van der Sande. Your first 1,000 customers are so critical to the success of the business. Companies want to brag and say I've got 50,000 reservations and they paid £2.50 each.
Yeah, but doesn't count.
No, we want 1,000 customers, and we want 95% of them to buy the car. And that means if we're going to put X amount of energy or budget, whatever it is, into reservation holders, we don't want to dilute it across 30,000. We want it to be concentrated in a very small number. Yeah. So that's our focus. We will have our guild members, we'll focus on them, and then we'll move straight to order once those reservations are delivered. Yeah.
Blimey.
Wow.
Daniel, it's fascinating to hear. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. It's the approach. It's a very, very refreshing thing to hear that you are just looking at it in a different but sensible way. You don't appear to be tearing up rule books or harnessing brand new whizzy technologies. It's just a very sensible, pragmatic approach, and believing that something that hasn't been done before can be done. I've really enjoyed hearing about the background, the plans, the strategy, the approach. I guess the next thing is that there'll be more news to follow, I'm sure. But the next thing at some point, let's have a go in one. I'd love to. I'm really excited about the product itself. Thanks for coming in. All the best of luck for it, and let's stay in touch. To everyone listening or watching, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're just listening to this as an audio podcast, make sure you follow the show on whichever app you're using. Where can people go to find out a little bit more about Longbow?
Longbowmotors.com.
Simple.
Longbowmotors.com.
Yep.
It's all on there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you.